Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian Ant. The Great Distant Worlds expedition got underway on Thursday the 14th of January, where over 800 players met in the Pallini system to begin their epic journey across 65,000 light years of space. A journey that will take 12 weeks across 23 waypoints through various nebula, the supermassive black hole at the centre of the galaxy, and eventually onwards. This is how the players met up. After weeks of planning, the expedition was finally getting underway. Leaving the planetary surface and heading for orbit, every commander here knew that this was likely to be the last that we'd see of civilization for a very long time to come. Even though not all pilots will make it through the entirety of this journey, we are all here at the beginning of this epic historical event where the largest fleet ever assembled within Elite began its journey into the depths of the galaxy. Waypoint 1 was in the Fine Ring Nebula, around about 1,000 light years from our starting position, and most commanders just travelled onwards to do that journey within around about an hour or so, maybe less, depending on their ship's capabilities. The target system was Shapley 1, a planetary nebula system. Now, although there was no planets within that system itself, a rendezvous point was set for a neighbouring system where the fleet would be able to meet up and explore the region for the next few days. The departure date for Waypoint 2, located within the Lagoon Nebula, was set for Sunday the 17th of January, so that gave us plenty of time to explore this rather gorgeous looking area. I've been playing Elite for a few months, just shy of 2 years now, and in that time I've never done any exploration with other people. So going from solo expeditions that have lasted in many cases multiple months to an expedition with many hundreds of players really was a new experience. During the few days here, I managed to wing up with a few different groups of players, as well as wing up with a very good friend of mine. There's many interesting places within this region of space, only a few hundred light years outside of inhabited space, but a nice location nonetheless. This system here, although already discovered by another player, featured quite a lot of very wealthy, rich looking worlds. The only one that I had much interest landing on though was the one right nearby this star, the first planet within that particular part of the system. Now, no matter where you go within this region, you will always be confronted by the beautiful blue nebula there. Although for the most part a huge set chunk of the fleet had left at the same time as each other, we were all to arrive in the Fine Ring sector at different times, and this of course was due to the different capabilities of the various ships within the fleet. So for a while at least I was out here on my own, and I took that as an opportunity to scout out a few nice looking locations. Now, material collection and synthesis are going to be quite important on this expedition, in particular the FSD boost, or Jumponium as it's been called by Dr. Kai and Eramus. And the reason we're going to need that is to be able to move across some of the regions of space further into the expedition that would otherwise be untraversable. Eventually I moved on to the rendezvous point within the Fine Ring sector and found that quite a few players were there waiting. We did still of course have quite a few days left within this particular region of space before we moved on, but players seemed keen to form a wing and begin exploring the region together. Settling down on this mountain peak within this absolutely massive crater was quite a nice experience. In particular, seeing this amount of players in one area, this far into space at least, is quite a rarity. Now, I did unfortunately experience a few technical glitches where I kept getting a lot of different disconnects as well as crash to desktops, but those problems didn't seem to be plaguing anyone else around here, so it may have just been some issues on my end, but it did mean that some of the footage I would have liked to have captured I didn't manage to capture. Right here we're looking at Commander Cola 2, an extremely avid explorer who has recommended me more than a couple of places to visit, places that have often turned out to be very worthwhile discoveries. And as you can see, this group of players had achieved a quite remarkable feat of settling so many ships down on the rather small peak of this particular mountain. Being down here in an SRV really does emphasise the scale of these ships, and that is something which is really noticeable if you're wearing the Oculus Rift. Unfortunately, I didn't have that on this particular occasion, something I really would have liked to have seen. But hopefully there will be a lot more opportunities further along on this journey. So, as I mentioned, the next leg of the journey takes us toward the Lagoon Nebula, 4,000 light years away from this current location, and they will traverse an area of space where those so inclined can start looking for Earth-likes that can be entered into the Pioneers Cooperative competition to allow a future potential community goal to colonise some area of space this far away from the inhabited bubble. So far, the furthest out we've gone is the Pleiades system. This would be quite an exceptional achievement to eventually get a station somewhere out 2,500 to 5,000 light years away from the edges of inhabited space. It would give explorers a much needed stop-off point and arrival point on returns from their ships, and I guess it would give pirates a rather unique opportunity to pick off players that are arriving to and from the galactic core. Not something I'd be too keen to see myself, but something no doubt that some players will particularly like to be able to do. After all, that really would go to highlight the lawlessness of the frontier edges of civilized space, wouldn't it? Now, what I've noticed on some of these planets is that the outgassing and the various misting effects almost give these areas an atmospheric type appearance. Something that you don't see on too many planets, but something that really does add to the ambience when you do locate it. So, as a whole, we spent quite a while here, all gathered together in the centre of this little encampment, and the little group here spent a while chatting to each other before we decided to move on further into the region of space around here. And so I formed into a wing with Cola 2, Kovic and the Tenderizer, and we went in search of one of the local black holes. A secondary mission for this expedition is to chart all regions of space that we pass through to find interesting locations both in space as well as on the surface of planets themselves. These locations will then be entered into the Galactic Mapping Project, which you can see a link to in the video description, and these locations will then be visitable by all future explorers. So, as well as being a fun event, this expedition will be creating a massive resource for the entire player base that will be usable for a long time to come. This right here was actually the first time I'd seen so many players around a black hole. Up until now, this had been something I'd only attempted on my own. So this was particularly interesting, especially when the members of the wing decided to try and push their way into the exclusion zone of the black hole. Now, I've got some more footage down on the planetary surfaces where I went exploring in another wing, and that will form a part of the second video of Distant Worlds, where we move on to the second waypoint in the Lagoon Nebula. For now, as always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time. Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian Ant. I'm here to talk about the Distant Worlds expedition, a journey to the opposite side of the galaxy, over 65,000 light years away. It's a journey that's going to be undertaken by the largest fleet ever assembled in game, with over 700 players signed up. This is an odyssey which has never before been attempted, yet as players cross the largest game world ever created, they will see sights no one in the inhabited space has ever seen.